Could you open up this one? Clary, could you open up this one? I was wondering. So the issue there is that we have a set of calls or overrides, but you are asking me to set base fee per gas to non-zero. But as like immediately when I'll do that, it will most probably potentially stop passing because we are in the like if call mode where we allow everything and anything to be zero. So the question is, shall we set base fee per gas as if it was filled in like correctly-ish, but keep the validation like running in non-validation mode, and thus in real life the base fee per gas will be zero? Or shall we like just say to the user, sorry, no, we cannot run this?
That's a good question. Actually, now I realize that why it returns zero, yeah. But the get with, I think get is lying in that situation, or I don't know how the get is doing that situation. So if you are running on non-validation mode and then you are asking for the base fee opcode, then do you return zero or do you return the kind of the current base fee? And at the moment, the get is returning the kind of the real base fee per gas, but then that is somewhat wrong because then those transactions are not using that.
That's a good question.
At the moment, I think get is kind of lying what the base fee per gas is, and the Nethermind is just returning zero.
Okay.
But then I'm not sure which is the correct. I think both ways have their problems and benefits.
If we set it to zero, then the user will at least see that if he wants to set it not to zero, he can do that. And when he will do that, we will evaluate it respectfully as if it was set to not zero, for example, and like validate it a little bit. Tiny little part of validation, but yeah, I get why it can be confusing somewhat.
But wait, because I thought that we are setting it to zero, actually.
I thought that
if you create a new block, don't you set it to the what is expected normal block to be?
I thought that if we are in non-validating, hey, well, yeah, we do actually have this code to set base fee to zero. So I am surprised that it is returning something else. Actually, this was I remember it was the other way around. It used to be that get was returning zero, another one was not returning zero, and we had a discussion of which one makes more sense.
Yeah, I think it was because we had validation mode on by default.
Okay.
Okay.
So now the question is, I mean, if get is returning non-zero base fee, then that's probably a bug.
Our spec is just saying that you should return what it is, but then I think this is something that we should add to the spec, what we decide to do here. But at the moment, it should return the kind of the current base fee, but then I think it's weird because the transaction should still go through. Or would it be one way to do that you set the base fees calculate correctly, but then somehow when you are sending the transaction, then you are not actually subtracting the base fee from those transactions. But I don't know if that would be confusing as well.
So I think the point here is that the gas price is also zero, right? And
Yes.
One of the reasons why we decided to set base fee to zero was then when you do something like subtract gas price from base fee, which should be valid all the time, but in case base fee is non-zero and gas price is zero, then that would be a negative number, which is going to be invalid.
Yeah, I don't know what is the correct way. I don't like either of the solutions.
Yeah, it's a nasty thing, but
So
Does
yeah,
Mike have ideas?
I have been trying to figure out what you guys are talking about and failing because I missed the first part.
yeah. So just to recap, there is a set of calls that are made to simulate in validation mode off, and the base gas fee is not set. So the question is, do we set it explicitly to 0 to indicate that we are like in this no validation land, or do we set it to something else, guided by some rules?
Specifically for validation mode off?
Yep.
Yeah.
I would
The
set
point
it.
is that we want to set free transactions, but I would still want to kind of get correct execution otherwise, but you cannot have both.
That's a good point. So either anyone who's looking at the gas price opcode is going to get a bizarre result, possibly divided by 0 and revert.
Yeah.
Which is impossible on mainnet. But this is validation mode off, so I would say set it to 0. Because the freeness, well, okay, so two options. Either set it to 0 or set it to the right value, but don't charge the user.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting.
Or I guess
if that's
charge
possible.
the the perfect world, you would set it to the base fee of the block, and you would set the priority fee to 0, and you would deduct from their balance if they had enough to cover it. If they don't, then you just say, okay, we tried. That would be ideal. I don't know if it's worth the complexity to do all that, though.
Let's do it in V2.
Yes.
Okay, so for V1, just set it to 0 or set it to base fee of the block? 0, I think,
That's
sounds
the
like.
0.
So that
And,
way people can work with contracts and addresses that have no money.
I think 0 is better because most cases you just want to make free transactions, and that's less important that the base fee is correct, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm on board with 0 for non-validation mode.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, so we return 0 in EVM and also in the block header.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is assuming that this is easy for you guys. I know the base fee technically can never go to 0, so it may actually be hard in some clients to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
All
mean
right.
base fee is 7
Right.
Yeah.
from the maths in practice.
Right. And so that's my only worry is that if we say, set it to 0, there might be some clients where setting to 0, like, just is really hard to do or breaks something or it has a divide by 0 error or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Might need custom code because we can definitely run transactions without it, but transactions are not blocks. And yeah, so it's like a level deeper, right? In terms of abstraction.
I mean, I guess we can have the block still have a base fee, right? It's just the transactions would skip the base fee check.
I think that would be the best way if we can do that.
Yeah, we can probably do that.
Okay, so the
Will it
block has a
affect the hash?
yes, because the base fee is part of the block header.
But then again, if the address can afford it, then I think it would be nice that if you would, then it would pay the base fee. But then that again it gets more complex, and then it can be also confusing that if you send the money to one, then it actually sometimes can afford it, sometimes can't afford it, and that can produce quite weird behavior.
Yeah, I think I'm convinced that the best way forward in my mind at the moment is user can put whatever they want for their fee, and we just always accept at whatever fee they said they wanted to pay. So like if user says max fee of X, we will allow their transaction through even if that is lower than the current base fee. So basically, we're in non-validated mode. We're removing the check that the max fee is less than the base fee.
Yeah, but the main question here is what do we do when it is not set at all? So the user haven't set it explicitly for us.
Yeah, sure. 0.
All right.
And then I would assume it's 0, yeah.
Yeah, so it's
90.
unset 0 and skip the check that validates that the max fee is above the base fee. Otherwise, everything else is like normal. They get deducted for the min of base fee and their max fee. And again, it's just we just remove the check that max fee has to be greater than base fee.
Is that something that can be done, or is that difficult? I think there, if the transaction is ready to pay more than the base fee, then we should only deduct the base fee, though. Otherwise, just what they are willing to pay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be the best way if that's easy to implement. Otherwise, we have to think something else.
Let's make some tests and see.
So what we are saying is, if gas price was not set both gas price and base fee to 0. If gas price was set, then doesn't matter what base fee is. We pass the validation. Is my understanding correct?
Sorry,
Yeah,
I
I
lost
think-
you for a few moments, I think. Could you repeat?
I think you're setting the base fee always the correct value. You just skip the validation for it. Then you just allow transaction to go through without it to being higher than the base fee.
Yeah, I put in chat what I believe is currently in production mainnet, which is the first block. And then what we're proposing here would be the second block. So you'll notice the assert is missing, and we default max fee per gas to 0 if it's missing. That double bar means fallback to in this example.
Yeah, and then the question is if this is easy to implement or not.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the clients, I'm being optimistic here, the clients have the implementation like this where the assertion is separate from the fee calculation. If they're like the same thing, like they're done in one line, then it might make this more complicated to
Okay,
do.
so but what is the base fee here then?
The base fee is whatever the base fee for the block is, as calculated normally.
Oh, okay. Then in that case, likely the transaction will fail on balance check.
For the non-validation mode that I have there in chat. So this is saying we take the smaller of the base fee or the max fee per gas the user supplied. And if the user supplied no max fee for gas, then we just take 0. The smaller of 0 or base fee, which is always going to be 0.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, sure.
I've got like 40% optimism that this is going to be easy, and I guess another mind 60% that one of you is going to have a hard time doing this, and we're going to have to change.
My main question would be if it would be as if for the end user he is calling ETH call. So if we can keep that, everything is probably fine and dandy for the end user. And otherwise, we have some issues to think about.
I think with ETH call, you are getting the correct base fee.
ETH call lets you provide no base fee, and it will treat, or no fee, and it will treat it as a fee-free transaction.
Yeah, but if you ask what the base fee is, you are getting the correct value.
Oh, you get the base fee for the block. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. It's a good question to ask. Is in Geth Nethermind, if you do an ETH call with no fee set and therefore a fee set to 0, and then inside of the contract, so in the EVM execution, it calls the gas price opcode. What's returned? Is it 0 or is it the block's base fee?
If the user did not provide any fee or any price, then we return 0 for both gas price and base fee.
For the
Oh, interesting.
Really?
Same for Nethermind.
I think so, but we'll have to create a test to check.
Really, if you in each call you're calling a contract that is getting the base fee, you are getting 0. I would imagine that you are not.
Yeah, so this was a behavior change a few months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like that because then you
Is-
cannot get the base fee with the it call.
Is
Yeah, you
there
have to
a
take
base
it up with
fee
Peter.
opcode? I don't think
What's
there is
that?
a base fee opcode, is there?
Yeah, there is that. That's what I'm doing in that test.
Was this added after 1559? I'm looking at 1559 EAP right now, and I do not see a new opcode.
It was a separate EIP, but it was shipped at the same time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. I vaguely remember that.
But yeah, I guess the reason why it's returning 0 is exactly the case that we have now, the problem we have now.
Anyway, I tend to agree with Kalari. It'd be nice if the base fee opcode returned the block space fee. However, I don't know if I care enough to want to postpone getting this out to mainnet anymore. And so if that's like not more than 0 work for either of you, then I would say let's just go with what ETHCall does.
Well, I prefer if we can do that, but if I don't know if it's difficult to implement, and if it's difficult to implement, then I'm not strongly kind of pushing for this. Just if it's easy to do, then we should think we should do this way. But I imagine that it's difficult to do if Get has decided already to return 0 for the base fee of the ETH call.
Yeah, we would have to diverge from his call, which is not super nice.
It's but then the simulation is more difficult if you need to. But I guess if you really want to get it correct, then you can always calculate the base fee yourself and set it. So I think that's in a way fine. That then the user needs to do more effort, but it's still possible to simulate with the correct base fee. And I think that's good.
Do we have a test for that?
And for ETH call,
For if simulate that would actually like test this this thing to be
well,
valid both on the contract side, like inside the contract call, and in the output.
that's what the test you shared is doing. It's getting all the it's returning all the those blob parameters from the EVM, and then it's of course each simulate is also returning all those block values, and then I'm comparing them to each other that they are matching. And that's how we found this issue, because Get and Nethermind is disagreeing on the output, but only on that base fee opcode and not on the others.
All right. So another one question I had was, I remember we had the page for the error codes, or at least error codes were included into some page. What happened to it? Does anybody know where I can find the page with error codes that are like error codes explanation laid out? Because I remember I had seen it, but I cannot find it. Like
It's in the execution spec. I can share the link.
please do.
It's here, but then there's a lot of stuff, and then just find for error, and you can find the list. There's two lists. There's when the transaction fails, and then there's when the whole thing fails.
Could we somehow add it to the wiki page, if it is possible? because it was, I think it was there some time ago, but yeah, right.
I don't remember it has been there, but maybe we can
Yeah,
add it.
yeah.
You mean the README? You mean?
The one that we had on the like docs folder. But yeah, now when I see it, it's all right. I think it is good. All right, so I can give some status updates. So we've reviewed is simulate code base. So probably the at least core of the code base will be someday soonish merged into the client, into the master. And we'll have, I think, at least for now, a flag that would be set to false by default, that would be able to enable if simulate if a user wants. So when you'll be starting a Docker image, you'll just pass in the flag set to true, and users will be able to call it. Otherwise, it will be disabled by default. And yeah, so we'll be able to at least merge the changes and not have a lot of pain of rebasing and merging it each time we do any updates to the call. And also I done the like call header as a base for return of the call. So we'll have the, in today's release, I think we'll have the correct-ish call header. So not call header, simulate result that you'll be able to compare with guest one. It should be noted that types are different, at least by default, between how we do it on the like client and what you are referencing in the RPC docs. So there may be some differences, like long versus uint 256, but hopefully nobody would really check it. I think. So the potential issue, potential test that would be quite interesting to check would be set block number to something bigger than long in C# and to see what would happen.
Did you have to write custom code for returning these types?
So before that, I had a custom like object that I returned with the fields Kilari wants, and I just cast it forward and backwards from the types we really use to the types that are sent. But now when we are just like inheriting from the call header, from the block header base, it will be a little bit different.
But it should be consistent with is_get block.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it probably shall.
Okay, great. Yeah, so as for my update, I did this refactor of like returning the full block header last week. So yeah, curious to see the differences with Nethermind. Maybe we can finally hunt the block hash difference issue.
I just edited the spec to add those block stuff, but otherwise I haven't been doing testing because at the moment net and Nethermind are differing a lot from each other. I guess if Oleg did those changes, we can get a new version and then I could run the tests again and to see what are the differences. Do we have anything to discuss over? We had to make a decision on what to do with the base fee thing, but I guess we need to wait from the clients to decide if that's difficult to do, or should we differ from the it call or not? I haven't read that pull request yet, so maybe there's a good reason why it's done that way. And that's actually pull request for get. So is Nethermind is doing the same thing with it call? I would imagine.
I don't remember really.
Are we doing with it call? Sorry.
If you are doing it call and getting the calling a contract that returns base fee, then what is that base fee going to be? Like get is going to return 0, but I would expect it to return the correct base fee, but seems like it's returning 0 instead.
On
Yeah,
ETH call?
Yeah,
Peter has a reasonably good argument here. Normally in production, gas price is by definition always larger than base fee. And so if you have code in your contract that does gas price minus base fee, which is not uncommon, because that's how you find out what the priority fee of a transaction was, that will be divided by 0. It'll be a overflow. And since I believe those are UINTs, that will revert. And so by setting the base fee down, you're basically guaranteeing that that code will not revert anymore.
So will such thing happen currently with ETH call?
So in Geth, someone does an ETH call and they don't specify a base fee, which is almost always. A contract that did gas price minus base fee would revert. And so in November, Geth changed it, so base fee is now always 0, so those contracts do not revert. I don't know what Nethermind does right now, but maybe different than Geth if they didn't talk to you guys about this. This looks like they just did it as like a
Just
bug, what they
checking.
considered a bug fix. What was that?
I'm checking.
Oh, okay. So this is not a bad reason to set the base fee to 0. It's unfortunate.
I think it's one of the cases when you actually need it, then you find out that it doesn't behave as you expect, and this can cause a lot of bugs. So because it's
Yeah.
somewhat you don't expect it to return 0.
No, we are taking, I think, the block parameter base fee.
Okay. So currently, it sounds like then ETH call for Nethermind Geth differ as of November, since Nethermind changed, or sorry, since Geth changed their behavior in November.
Yeah, but we set it to 0 by default here, so it will be 0 and 0.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying that.
We already have this like special code that explicitly
Okay.
sets it to 0 when we are in non-validation mode. Yeah.
But in ETH call or in ETH simulate or both?
In ETH simulate.
I see.
I don't
Okay,
know.
so currently Nethermind. Okay, this is non-validating mode. I feel like maybe following ETH call here is the right thing to do, so people's transactions don't revert.
So
There's
why
also this-
Geth is setting into 0? Sorry, I missed that again too.
So Geth is setting the base fee opcode to 0 if rather than setting it to the block.baseFee, the block's base fee, to avoid causing a revert in contracts that do gas price minus base fee, which is a very common way to identify how much priority fee a particular transaction paid. And
Jesus.
That's used for things like meta transactions and stuff like that. Because they're both UINTs, and so subtracting would give you an overflow.
Yeah, got it. Underflow.
Exactly.
And this is why we are just using long.
There's some discussing about the blob-based fee, and I guess we need to decide the same thing for it, what to do with it.
Yeah, I'm leaning kind of towards, for the non-validating mode, I'm leaning towards just setting it to 0. It does feel wrong because the base fee is a block parameter and you're asking for a block parameter, and so you should get the block parameter. But at the same time, I recognize that a lot of people's stuff is going to not work if we don't set it to 0. I mean, we could just say for those people, go and fix your provide a gas price in your testing, but then they can't do they can't run simulations with no ETH. That also sucks.
But that won't work either. They have to run the with validation mode.
Sorry. I went too soon. Now I see there's more logic on that. So we have a should say set base fee. Okay, okay. Now I see what we're doing. If transaction gas price is above 0, or transaction from ETH call, or transaction max fee per gas is above 0, or transaction max priority fee per gas is above 0, then we do set the base fee. Otherwise, we zero the base fee. Sorry, found another line when this is being done earlier, and then I just see we use the base fee. So I thought we use the base fee, but we modified earlier.
You use a virtual base fee that could be any number of things.
Yeah, so base fee is 0 only if gas price, max fee per gas, and max priority fee per gas weren't specified, right? So we set the base fee to 0. If they were specified, we set the base fee to the previous base fee. That's our logic. Okay, now I get it.
I see.
Sorry.
Is that compatible with what Geth is doing, Sino? Is
Yes.
it the same? Like you guys only set it to 0 if the user doesn't provide anything?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so should we just go with that then? Sounds like where we're heading.
Sounds like
I think
a good
when
idea.
when we are returning the base fee, we should also set it to 0, so that the EVM and what we are returning should also agree to each other.
Ugh. That feels even worse to me.
Well, I
Because
think
the
it's
block
more
does-
confusing if the EVM returns different value than what the
Yeah,
block is.
I understand. I just hate when the lies expand out to. So would we then hash the block based on the base fee of 0 as well?
Yep.
Oh, so you're saying actually make the base fee for the whole block 0. What if one transaction the block has a fee set and one doesn't? Currently, the code is
0. It's
so
always
the code is going to. One of those transactions will have a base fee set to something non-zero, and another one will have a base fee set to 0.
I mean, the default value for base fee on non-validation mode is 0. And then if you set validation mode, then it's calculated correctly.
Oh, you're saying that we should the base fee is just fixed at 0. And what if the thing you're trying to simulate, though, is dependent on base fee?
The default is 0, so you can override it, but then you have to calculate yourself what it should be.
I see. So if you're saying in non-validation mode, if you don't give the block a base fee, the block's base fee is going to be 0.
Yeah.
Well, or the transaction at gas price. I see, but that's kind of. I think in gas for ETH simulate we return the actual block base fee in the header, but for each call specifically, if the gas price was 0, then the base fee is kind of set to 0.
Right. So in Geth ETH simulate, the header results that you return are correct, not lies. But the EVM opcode for base fee, sometimes it's a lie, depending on contextual situation.
I think so. I have to double check, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate Kalari's position that saying, oh, the base fee for this block was 5, but then the transactions reported in the EVM, the base fee was 0, is very confusing. And so I definitely appreciate that argument. But I really don't like lying in more places than we need to.
Yeah.
I think it's just lying in one place and then being consistent about the lie instead of lying somewhere and not being consistent about your lying.
Is it lying? I wouldn't call it lying. It's just special case. And then we do not lie by returning it, right?
Well, so the question is you have 2 transactions in one block, and one of them has some fees set, one of them doesn't.
You know, there's always a good idea for that. Throw an error.
If you want any of your transactions to have no base fee or no fees, then all of them have to have no fees.
Either all no fees or either all fees. Explicit.
Yeah, that's not the end of the world.
That's more consistent.
And then you're consistent.
Actually, the problem with like one transaction having something set to it, we just like calculated based on the fact that for a block as a whole, the base fee is 0, and this specific transaction had something set to it. All right, let's multiply this by 0. We get the 0. No.
Yeah, that was, I think, aligned with what Clara was proposing earlier, is that if the user doesn't explicitly give us a base fee for a block, we just set it to 0, and then everything else kind of works at that point. No other special cases needed.
Well, I mean, then if my transaction provides a gas price,
It'll still work.
like-
Like it'll just get a base fee of 0, and so it's going to do the min of the max fee they set and 0, and get 0 out.
I will just pay a lot.
No, it'll be
But
free.
we're simulating mainnet, like on mainnet. So base fee is high, few ways.
Right. So Claris and Oleg, if I understand correctly, are saying even instead of having the base fee be derived correctly, it's just always 0 unless the user overrode it.
Default is
Yes.
0.
Yeah, the block base fee.
Invalidation mode false.
Yeah, invalidation mode false. Yeah. And so all transactions are free unless the user pays a priority fee.
Or if the user wants to set the base fee themselves, then they can pay.
Yeah. Yeah, they could do an override if they wanted to set it to something. But like they said, that means the user is now going to have to manually calculate the base fee changes themselves. They're not going to get accurate base fee changes.
Yeah.
Which is
I think that's for me.
kind of unfortunate, but it does make the system consistent.
And I think it's quite clean because you're also returning it and you're clearly saying that it's 0.
Yeah. Yeah, I can get on board with this. Makes me sad, but it's acceptable. And I do like consistency. Anyone opposed?
I think it's quite clean solution.
Yeah, I can get behind it.
It's all I can look at. Lucas, fine with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, I just typed in chat what I think we agreed on, so let's get that in the spec and updating the clients, and this problem will go away.
Yeah. So you cannot send a free and then paid transaction at the same time anymore. They are either all free or they're all paid.
No, you could pay a priority fee, and if you wanted to pay, you could pay a priority fee.
Ah, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
If you really needed to.
Yeah. So you could simulate it so that you can calculate the base fee and then set the priority fee high enough.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have anything else?
Well, base fee will be 0, so basically the whole fee will go to the miner, right?
So
The whole max fee per gas becomes the priority.
no, whatever the user sets some max priority fee, and that will go to the miner, assuming that number is lower than the max fee. So if they set their max fee per gas to 100 and their max priority fee to 1, they're going to pay 1 because they need the min of those two.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, min of the two.
Yes. True.
So, actually, what about the blob base fee? Should we do the same thing for it?
Ugh, blobs.
Do we have in ethcall something like simulation of blobs, or we don't?
I
think
believe so. Yeah.
Really, the ETH call supports blobs.
You
I
can
think it doesn't. Oh, really?
Maybe not ETH call, but I vaguely remember having. Didn't we add blob version hashes? Or if not, I think we should definitely do it.
Yeah, so I remember us talking about blob stuff, and we were talking about using it as a way to convince people to move from ETH call to ETH simulate by just saying we have no plans on adding blob support to ETH call. I don't know if that actually we agreed on that or not. I just remember us discussing it.
But actually, in that get pull request, they are talking about the blob.baseFee for the ETH call. But it's just something that they discussed that they should discuss about. But I don't know if it was ever discussed.
No, I don't. I don't remember that being discussed. But I mean, so I have code here for blob.baseFee, definitely. We can. I mean, we have an override for blob.baseFee. That's part of the spec.
And by default, it's just calculated properly, like from the parent block.
Yes. Yes.
And so the question is, should we do the same logic where it's 0 by default rather than calculated properly, and user can override it if they want something else?
Yeah,
Do we have
non-validation mode.
to read blob.baseFee?
That's a good question. Can the EVM access blob.baseFee?
Yes.
I think they already didn't have support for it, or maybe they have.
I mean, is there an opcode for it? Is the question.
Yeah. I mean, there's a IP 7516.
Okay. And this is deployed. The CIP went out.
I'm guessing so.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, there's Solidity support there as well. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, just for consistency, I kind of feel like we should do the same thing.
But do we have the situation with gas price minus base fee? Do we have like?
No, I think there's only blob.baseFee.
So blobs don't have necessarily the same issue. Why we had to set base fee to 0? I'm happy to go either way. Like not a strong opinion on this.
I guess the question is it common to send free blob transactions? Like with ETH call, you quite often want to make kind of free calls, so you don't want to bother with the gas prices. And I guess if blob gets popular, then there would be similar kind of need.
I would imagine so.
Yes.
Sending free does seem useful.
In general, it's very useful that you can make free ETH calls and you wouldn't need to bother with all the gas stuff all the time.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards setting it to 0 just so it's consistent with base fee and when you're in non-validating mode. Like even though like the only reason to have it 0 is because of this underflow error, I think people aren't going to know that, and so if they see one of them as 0, they're going to expect the other one to also be set to 0. I guess that would be my instinct as to what the default expectations of users are. And so having them both be 0 feels like the right way to go to me.
Yeah, I think it's better to do it like that way.
But I'm also very weakly in this position. Not strong. Anyone feel strongly about blob.baseFee? 0 or non-0? No? Okay, let's go with 0 then. So same behavior as base fee. Blob.baseFee will have the same behavior.
Sounds good or consistent.
Yeah, consistent, not good.
Do you have anything else to discuss? Every week we'll change the spec.
I keep feeling like we're so close.
No,
Oh,
80-20% rule. We are 80% done.
Yeah. Ugh. I feel like we're now at we got 80% done, and then we got the next 80% done, and then the next 80% of that done, and so we're at like whatever whatever that small number is.
At least we are moving forward, not backward.
99.2%, 80%, 80%, 80%.
Yeah, from here it is bug fixes.
Just what?
Bug fixes.
Hopefully, yes. Okay. So we'll get our team will get the spec updated, and by our team I mean Kalari.
Yeah.
I'm volunteering him again.
Okay,
I
guys.
guess we-
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Talk to you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.